Hi everyone, I'm Andy Gore, a real estate investor and coach. A bad builder can be an absolute nightmare, bringing you stress, expense, and it can make your life a real misery. That's why today I'm going to share with you my step-by-step process for you to find a brilliant builder. I've added timestamps down into the description below so that you can jump to the section that you need. And during the video today, I'm going to share with you a link so that you can grab a template to track your builder contacts so that you find the best builder for you. Before you start looking for a builder, you need to make a few decisions, such as what's your budget? How much money do you have to spend on this refurb? What are you looking to achieve? And do you have a rough idea of the works that you want to complete? You also need to think about when you want the work to start. Is it imminent, the next sort of 2 to 4 weeks, or is it something more aspirational, maybe next year, in a few months' time? Lastly, are there any special considerations around your property? Is it listed? Is it in an area of special scientific interest? Is your project going to be really complex with lots of structural work or glazing or anything really, really tricky? It's really important that you go and get clear on these different areas, because that will then start going and dictating the type of builder that you're looking for. Are you looking for a contractor who may just go and replace your kitchen? Are you looking for perhaps a more experienced builder with a few of their own team? Or are you looking for a real expert who can really give you advice on the listed building or the design complexities? Think about those sorts of things before you start looking. Next up is starting to do some research, and that can come from a few different places. So there are various websites that list contractors, so you can look at reviews and their professional qualifications, if they've got any pictures of past projects, etc, etc. You can also go and speak to families, friends, neighbours, colleagues. They may have used a builder recently that they're happy to recommend, and that's also a great way to try and find somebody that you can trust. As well, you can go and reach out to other professionals. So there may be surveyors in your local area, mortgage brokers, perhaps even estate agents who have come across builders. They know that they do a good job, and they can go and recommend their services to give you a bit of a head start. And lastly, of course, there is Google. So just going and searching for builders in your local area. If a builder has a website, an online presence, they're sort of happy to be found, then that is a good sign. Just make sure that you still do your due diligence, which I'll cover in a later section. At this point, you're now ready to shortlist. So you should have a decent list of people who you think would be suitable based on their online reviews, recommendations, and the type of work that they do. So now you need to start going and making a shortlist, and this is a list of people that you then want to start meeting. Now, how do you go about this? Well, firstly, I would recommend that you look at the reviews in detail. So how were various things, like how was their communication? What was the quality of the work like? Did they stick to their budget and their quote, etc.? So really look into those online reviews and try and find ones that are quite recent rather than sort of 6, 12 months or older. Also see if they have any professional qualifications or accreditations. Are there any sort of professional bodies that have gone and signed off and given their seal of approval to this contractor? It's also important to think about the competence of the builder. So have they done the sorts of projects before that you now want them to do? For example, extensions or new builds, loft conversions or basements. Do they have that type of experience already? And one thing to really keep in the back of your mind is this. Do they look professional or amateur? And what I mean by that is, how do they come across to you? Do they have the really nice branded vans? Do they have clothes that have their branding on them? Are they a real professional outfit? Or do they have a banged up van? Is it really, really untidy? Do they go and have a disheveled appearance? Because a phrase that I love and is really, really important is, how somebody does anything is how they do everything. So if they're professional about their quotes, if they're really good at communicating, they'll be like that through the project. Whereas it's quite likely if their van's untidy and messy, if they're untidy and messy, how do you think your site will be during the project? Once you've got your shortlist, it's now the exciting part where you get to go and meet them. And at this point, treat it like an interview. You know, you're about to go and spend a significant amount of money. It could be one of the sort of second or third largest sums of money you may ever spend behind actually buying the house. And so it's really important that this interview gives you a lot of confidence before you go and spend money with this contractor. So sort of ask them some key questions, firstly around their competency. So what sort of projects have they done like this before? What do they think the biggest challenge is for this project? what do they see the biggest risks are, etc, etc. Also ask them who will be on their team. Do they work with lots of subcontractors who they bring in? Do they have their own team that are in-house? Really get to understand who they are as an outfit and a set of people who you're about to go and give a lot of money to. There are also the practical questions. So things like, when can they start? Are they booked up for the next 12 months or could they start next week? If somebody isn't that busy, it may be a suggestion that they are not as good at finding work and people may not be that keen to book them. But then on the other hand, if somebody's booked up for 12 months, that may not be suitable for your needs. You can also ask them things about, do they need a deposit before they start? Are they happy to accept a retainer or a fixed price contract? There are lots of questions to ask them about the practicalities of how they operate, and I've got a whole list within the template that I'll share the link with coming up a bit later in this video. Also use the interview to listen. So is the builder really engaged with the project? So are they asking you questions? Are they trying to find more? Are they really interested in the type of work that you want them to do? Are they pushing back perhaps on some of your ideas based on their knowledge or experience? Or are they more like yes people where they say that they can do everything, which may be a bit of a red flag when they're just trying to win you over rather than actually being able to do what you need them to. By the end of the interview, you would have gathered a load of information from the different builders, got a feel for their personalities, their competence, their experience, and also when they can actually start. So at that point, you're now ready to get some quotes. Now, for all of the builders that come round, you may not really resonate or be impressed with them, and so there's no point asking them for a quote. But really, you want to have a minimum of 3 quotes from different builders so that then you can compare and contrast each of the different contractors. This is why it's so important that you have a clear schedule of works to give to the builder when they come round, so that they are really, really clear on the work that you want them to do. They will then quote on the schedule of works, and it will make it a lot easier for you to compare between the different contractors. Because if they're all including and excluding different things, you'll end up trying to compare apples with oranges, and it doesn't really work and the quotes won't be that meaningful. So instead, ask them to break it out into materials and labour based on the same schedule of works, and you can then really easily make a comparison. A couple of other points. You need to know whether the contractors charge VAT or not, because that could be a big difference if you're in the UK. And also, have any of them picked up things that may need doing which other builders didn't? For example, they may say that you need to go and replace a few roof tiles, whereas another builder may say you need to replace the whole roof. So are there any discrepancies about the type of work that the builders think you need to do? And do you think that they are being open and honest about it? Or are they trying to go and boost the level of works that you need them to do? So have a think about that. You may need to go back to the builders just to get a bit more clarity around the quotes. There may be things that they've missed. It may be unclear whether you need to pay for things or whether the builder does. Once you've got a clear set of quotes from the builders, you're then ready to go and select the one that you wish to work with, which is fantastic because you're almost at the end of this process. The last few things you need to do are some more due diligence. So try and get 3 references from the builder, 2 that are recent and 1 that is at least 12 months ago. Because sometimes with build works, problems can crop up over time. So you don't want people who have literally just finished with the builder and who may not have seen any problems come through yet. Also make sure that you see any of the relevant insurances so that they are protected and so are you. That's really important for the health and safety of people and also your property. And lastly, just do a little bit more digging online. So whether it's Companies House in the UK to find out their financial position if they're a limited company, other reviews or places online where you can see more information, but just do a bit more digging. And remember, you've got the testimonials where you can go and ask questions about how they operated, would they recommend them. You can even play devil's advocate by saying what reason would you give to not work with them? That's always quite a good question as well. If you're happy, if all of the due diligence is complete and you want to progress, the last thing is a bit of negotiation. Now you may find that between the quote and your budget, there's a little bit of a discrepancy and you may need to go and start reviewing what's in them to try and bring them together. And there's a few things that you can do. Firstly, you can just remove. So if you've got stuff on your schedule of works and actually you thought that's a nice to have, or it would be really good, but you don't actually need it anymore, just take it off. The next thing is reduce. So you can go and try and bring in some of the costs by reducing the scale of some of the things that you're doing. So for example, you may have 10 spotlights in a certain room and you only need 8, or maybe you've got too many sockets and you can just reduce the number of things just to go and refine that price a little bit. Retain. So you may be going and originally wanted to replace a load of things like maybe the doors and skirting and the whole kitchen, and actually having thought about it, you can actually go and retain some of what's already here and go and save yourself a few pounds by retaining, say, the kitchen cabinet carcasses, and you can just go and replace the doors. There are also things where you can replace items for cheaper. So maybe you were going for a granite worktop in the kitchen, and then you can go for something a bit cheaper like quartz, for example. Or maybe you were going for quite expensive doors, and now you want to go and go for something cheaper to bring the project back on budget. So try and think about some of the things that you can replace for alternatives that are cheaper. Lastly, you can reallocate. So there may be some instances where the builder was sourcing something, or maybe they were doing something that's actually quite expensive, which you can do yourself for cheaper. So maybe it's doing a little bit of the clear out at the start. They may be going and spending time removing a lot of the stuff from your property, where you could get some friends or family around and you can go and do that instead. Or maybe they were sourcing furniture or some other items, and they were putting a markup on it because they were doing the work, and instead you can go and do it for cost price. So you may be able to reallocate who actually does some of the work to save some money as well. Great, so at this point you should have found a builder, you've got a quote that aligns with your budget, you've got a clear schedule of works, and you're now ready to instruct them. And at this point we get down to the nitty-gritty around contracts. So things like, when are they going to start? What's the name of you as the client? The address where the work's going to happen? What's the name of the builder, their company, etc.? What are the payment terms? What are you going to do about a retainer and variations if things change from the schedule of works? All of these things, go and have a chat with them, put it down into some form of written contract, and then just make sure that both sides sign so that you're very clear just on the roles and responsibilities, what you've discussed, a set of plans and the schedule of works that are finalised as well, so there's no ambiguity or uncertainty when you do start the actual project. Brilliant, you've got to the end of the process, and by this point I'm sure you've found a brilliant builder. There's a lot to take in over this video, so do go and jump about, have a look at the various sections again and make sure that you're clear around what you need to do at each stage. I did say at the start of the video that I would also share with you a link so that you can download a whole guide around how to do this, how to track your builder leads to make life even easier. So if you just head to the link here, you can download it, let me know what you think, and I can't wait to hear about some of your projects in the comments below. If you want to know more about systemizing your real estate business, then do check out my channel here, where I've got loads of videos about all sorts of things such as using Asana and Notion and virtual assistants, etc. But other than that, thanks so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. See ya.